A peace deal can be called historic and still leave the people most affected trapped inside a future designed by everyone else. That's what happened here. Camp David was sold as a breakthrough, as courage, as history moving forward. What matters for us is what survived once those promises turned into clauses, because some parts of this deal became concrete very quickly. For Palestinians, the future was left open, but on terms they did not control. By 1977, the language had shifted, but not, at least in public, towards some narrow bilateral exit.
In the last few days, we have seen, I believe, an historic breakthrough in the search for a permanent, lasting peace in the Middle East. Because of the true leadership qualities that have been exhibited by the courage of President Sadat and the gracious reception of him in Israel by Prime Minister Begin. When we see progress being made by the parties themselves, we support them to move on their own. I think it's much more important to have direct negotiations between Egypt and Israel than to have us acting as a constant, dominant intermediary. I think this is a major step in the right direction.
Mr. Carter reiterated that a separate peace treaty between Israel and Egypt is not desirable, but he added a qualifier that amounted to a mild warning to the other Arabs.
If at some later date it becomes obvious that Jordan does not want peace, or that Syria does not want peace, or that Lebanon does not want peace in a settlement with Israel, then an alternative might have to be pursued. But we've certainly not reached that point yet.
What people were being shown was something broader.
I'm not going to Geneva to discuss the possibility of the withdrawal, the Israeli withdrawal from the land occupied after 1967 at all. This is a fact. Put yourself in my shoes. Could you accept bargaining on your land? I'm not ready to bargain on 1 inch of my land at all the Arab land. Israel knows this quite clearly.
Can you conceive of Egypt signing an agreement with Israel to which there is not also accord given by Syria and the PLO and the other relevant Arab states?
No, not at all. Because our ultimate goal from the Geneva Conference is to establish permanent peace. Without all the parties concerned attending and signing this peace agreement, we can't establish peace.
So it has to be an overall...
all the parties.
A regional settlement, land occupied in 1967, Jerusalem, and a future where Palestinians still sounded politically present, not administratively pushed back for later. And that matters, because it tells us where to look for the real narrowing.
Do you think that the Palestinian state will include or exclude the part of the West Bank which is East Jerusalem?
It must be part of the Palestinian state, the Western Bank and the Gaza Strip with a corridor between them through Israel, and this can be reached in Geneva.
And when you talk about the West Bank, you include East Jerusalem in that. It's one and the same thing.
Quite right. It is part of the land occupied after 1967. Let me tell you this: no one in the Arab world, either Muslim or Christian, and in the Muslim world, that's now more than 700 million. Will agree to the Israeli sovereignty over the Arab part of Jerusalem, because this is something pure religious issue for them. I told President Carter this quite frankly, what I'm telling you this. No one will agree to the Israeli sovereignty on these holy places.
It wasn't announced at the front, it was built into what came next. Promise people heard was broader than the delivery that followed. Before the clauses, there was the image, and the image mattered.
From the start, it was a media event. Following President Sadat's dramatic statement in Cairo that he was prepared to go to the ends of the earth to talk directly with Israel, Prime Minister Begin broadcast directly to the people of Egypt.
But we do not want any clashes with you. Let us say one to another, and let it be a silent ode by both peoples of Egypt and Israel. No more wars, no more bloodshed, and no more threats.
Almost immediately, the forum switched from radio to satellite television.
20 minutes before 10 p.m., the seemingly impossible has happened. President Anwar Sadat of Egypt, a nation officially at war with Israel, has arrived here in the center of the capital of Israel. A historic moment. And if you can detect a note of emotion in my voice, it's an emotion that's shared by everyone here in the lobby of the King David Hotel, where President Sadat has just walked through the doors.
Because once diplomacy is staged as history in motion, a narrower agreement can start to feel like the first chapter of a comprehensive peace. That's the real work this spectacle is doing, not resolving the conflict, teaching the audience how to read it.
Let history record that at 11.5 minutes after 2 this afternoon Eastern Time, Egypt and Israel had a peace treaty. A treaty formally ending 3 decades of war. Egypt's President Sadat and Israel's Prime Minister Begin today at the White House signed this treaty for their countries. It was a simple ceremony under a sunny sky that began with the 3 leaders walking the short distance from the White House to the North Lawn, shaking hands and getting down to the business of the day, affixing their signatures to a document sure to change the Middle East, possibly even the world. 1,500 invited guests witnessed the event, but the official witness to the treaty was President Carter, and he noted that this is just the start, that there still is a long and difficult road to travel before peace comes to all the Middle East. At no time during his speech did Mr. Carter mention by name the Palestinians, the most sensitive issue in this peace process. Throughout the brief ceremony, Arab students in Lafayette Park across from the White House shouted their opposition to the treaty. While some of the invited guests at the White House appeared distracted by the noise, neither Sadat nor Begin seemed to notice. Among the guests were virtually all the members of Congress whose approval is needed for the United States' end of the peace bargain, including some $5 billion in assistance.
The cameras, the ceremony, the language of courage and destiny, all of it compresses what is still unresolved underneath.
We are all committed to pursue our efforts until the fruits of the comprehensive settlement we agreed upon are shared by all parties to the conflict. President Carter once said that the United States is committed without reservation to seeing the peace process through until all parties to the Arab-Israeli conflict are at peace. The steps we took in the recent past will serve Arab vital interests. The liberation of Arab land and the reinstitution of Arab authority in the West Bank and Gaza would certainly enhance our common strategic interests.
And just notice what the ceremony is doing here. By now it already feels comprehensive, before we've even checked what on paper it actually gives and to whom. So by the time the paperwork arrives, the emotional frame is already in place. The audience has already been taught what progress looks like, and who can slip out of frame without breaking the mood. Technical language matters because this is where politics becomes architecture.
Mr. Perez, Prime Minister Begin said in his speech today that the way he understands the autonomy plan is that the West Bank Arabs will administer themselves, but not the territory. In other words, that Israel would continue administering the land itself. Does this satisfy you?
No, not at all. Realistically, I do not see how can you separate between self-government of people and government of a territory. Can we really say that you can distinguish between a man and his house, or a farmer and his field or his garden? It's impossible in real terms. And then again, the agreement calls not for a self-administrative council, but basically for a self-governing authority. And we are keen on the difference between administration and government. This is one of the reasons why we have our doubts about the autonomy plan. We feel that the two parties, Egypt and Israel, have departed from Camp David with a contradictory understanding what is the meaning of the autonomy. And we foresee a rather complicated negotiations in the wake of the agreement. But
Mr. Begin's interpretation of autonomy is a deviation from the Camp David Accord?
I think this is a very optimistic interpretation, and I foresee troubles.
But is it a deviation from the Camp David Accord?
Well, I don't want to judge it that way, but when I read the English version of the Camp David, I must say that the Hebrew translation is somewhat optimistic.
Once a promise is moved into procedure, what matters is no longer how generous it sounded. What matters is what the structure actually allows. And here, the structure does something very specific. It offers self-government in language, while withholding sovereignty in practice. People can be discussed politically. But land, movement, security and decisive leverage stay wrapped inside transition periods, security locations, control posts and later negotiations shaped by stronger actors. That's the split. not autonomy as a hopeful word. Operationally, it meant Palestinians could be offered administrators without being given control over land, borders, or force.
What links the terms of this treaty to the broader question of peace in the Middle East is a side letter signed by both Sadat and Begin. It obliges both countries to begin within 1 month to negotiate the terms for Palestinian autonomy on the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, home for more than 1 million Palestinians. The negotiation itself to last no longer than 1 year, after which there are to be elections for a so-called self-governing Palestinian Authority. Everyone assumes this will be the toughest part of the entire negotiation, with Israel ruling out any talks with the Palestine Liberation Organization, as well as any thought of an independent Palestinian state. The U.S. and Egypt have similar views on this issue, both aiming at a Palestinian homeland or entity on the West Bank and Gaza, linked perhaps to Jordan. In addition to the peace treaty itself and the Palestinian side letter, there are memoranda of agreement between the U.S. and Israel, one defining America's obligations to Israel in the event the peace treaty with Egypt collapses, and another guaranteeing American oil deliveries to Israel for 15 years if Israel cannot buy oil anywhere else.
And that matters in live terms too. Because if control over land movement and security never meaningfully leaves the occupying power, daily life can stay under the same pressure, even while the rhetoric suggests a future is opening. So the trade inside the phrasing is this: a timetable without sovereignty, an authority without territorial control, and a final status pushed into a future the stronger side is better placed to shape. Now the question changes, not what the agreement said, what it distributed. This board is the simplest way to see it. Egypt gets concrete movement. Israel gets concrete movement too. Palestinians get future tense process. And that difference matters. Sinai had a timetable. Palestinian autonomy had a deferral.
Now, according to the peace treaty, Gaza and the West Bank are to have autonomy, limited self-government. Independence, though, is a different question. Outside the camps, the townspeople have become in part economically dependent on Israel. Each day, buses take 30,000 workers into Israel to the factories of Ashkelon and Tel Aviv. And political independence for the Gaza isn't likely either to form any part of Israeli thinking in the detailed autonomy negotiations during the months after the treaty is signed. The Israelis are worried that without their army here, the Palestine Liberation Organization will be back in strength. And the Arab mayor of Gaza is clear, he thinks autonomy means nothing.
The Israelis are not going to pull out. That's the point. Mr. Begin has stated that there will remain Israeli forces on the occupied territories forever. So there's no chance of the inhabitants of Gaza having their freedom to do anything. He has even stated that the autonomy that is being discussed is the autonomy of the people over the people, not over the land. So he has stripped any meaning from true autonomy. But I don't think it would lead to domination of any authority other than Palestinian authority. We feel that the PLO are part of us, the people in the occupied territories. We feel that we in the occupied territories are part of the PLO, and any government that will be set up here will be a government of the Arabs of Palestine, where some of the PLO people, some of the local people may become the governing power.
The Israeli military presence in the Gaza and West Bank and the detailed question of autonomy have been largely shelved by the peace treaty. And in the months ahead, they're likely to be thorny points in the side of Israeli-Egyptian relations.
That's why the phrase peace process can mislead here. Because process isn't neutral. It decides who moves now and who gets told to wait. Here, state interests moved first. Palestinian rights were pushed into a later stage that stronger actors were always better placed to shape, manage and postpone. So the asymmetry isn't something hindsight discovered. It's already visible in the distribution, territory and bilateral certainty on one side, autonomy language without enforcement on the other. The gap on paper is one thing, the gap in people's lives is another.
The camp was set up in 1967 after Israel swept to victory in the Six-Day War and occupied Jordan's West Bank. Nearly 500,000 Palestinians fled across the River Jordan at that time, and Bekaa was just one of several camps providing temporary shelter. Officially, it's still a temporary camp, but many residents have been here ever since it opened, and in practice, Bekar's as permanent as any town or village in the Middle East. Despite the recent progress, the refugee population as a whole is not yet self-supporting. Help with food, education and health comes from the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. Last year, the agency spent $125 million, $11 million more than it had budgeted for. The work it does is essential, yet the effect has inevitably been to prolong the refugees' dependence on such aid, and thus to weaken any impulse towards integration into Jordanian society. Whatever the motives of those who run them, the camp's very existence tends to preserve the Palestinian problem in the form it first got in 1948.
This is the part treaty language can't show you, not what was promised, what daily life still felt like underneath the promise.
Most of the camp's personnel are themselves Palestinians. Dr. Fawzi Atta was born in Jerusalem, but his family fled in 1948 when he was a boy of 5. We asked him how he felt about working in the camp.
My personal opinion of this, I like to work here between the refugees. Work because they need the help from anywhere.
Officially, this is a temporary camp, and yet it's been here 10 years already. Can you see it still being here in 10 years' time?
I think no, because we have the hope to return back for our country. So because we have lost our country and we have the obligation to do anything to get back our country.
But how do you think that could happen? Will it be a political solution or will it be a military one?
I am a doctor, I am not a political, but I think that there is an intent of the political solution.
But do you think that with a new government in Israel, the kind of government that Mr. Begin is leading, do you really think that a political solution will be possible?
Maybe.
Because once you leave treaty language and move into camps, occupied cities, return and administration, the word peace starts looking very different. Not like arrival, more like management. Refugee life made durable, political claims made conditional.
But he certainly feels like one now, with his mother and other relatives still in Jerusalem.
I went 3 times to visit my family in Jerusalem. Really, I saw myself a stranger. I was born in Jerusalem and living in Jerusalem. My friends and family and relatives, all of them there. When I went there, I was looking to see where are my friends, relatives. Those people was accustomed to see them before 1967.
And had they gone?
Most of them, they left the country, and it is a matter of evacuation.
Do you think that you would ever return to Jerusalem?
I wish, and everybody has the wish to return to his home. Everybody consider Jerusalem his home.
Can you see that happening in your lifetime, a return to Jerusalem?
This is just a hope. Nothing can be achieved by hope or by speech unless serious action would be achieved. Nothing will be done.
If there came a day when a Palestinian state was established on the West Bank, would you stay here or would you return?
I stay in the place where I can find my job, my living, because I consider whether West Bank or East Bank the same, but always I look forward for my native home.
Return affirmed in principle, but not delivered in reality.
We are not after 10 years or 3 years or just solving a problem like this. No, we want our rights, we want our land, we want to go back and live in Palestine.
I think that the Palestinians, they are well educated and well cultured. They can take part in all fields of human activity. I mean, scientific, arts, literature. I think as a small nation, we can take part.
This is my feeling, and I am ready to leave everything here and go back to my home. Really, everything. I am ready to start from the zero even.
Do not deny the people who were original owners the right to go back. Do not deny the Palestinian per se the right to perform as a human being.
I am a human being. If the world wants me to abide
by the morality of humanity, then they must treat me as a human being.
And that's what this beat adds, not another proof that Palestinians were deferred, a proof of how that deferral is lived.
In that year, the General Assembly adopted Resolution 3236, which reaffirmed the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people, including the right to self-determination, the right to national independence and sovereignty, and the right of the Palestinians to return to their homes and property.
La question de Palestine est au cœur du problème du Moyen-Orient.
1. The question of Palestine is the heart of the Middle East problem, and no solution could be envisaged without taking into account the rights of the Palestinian people.
And notice the shape of it now. The rights are on the record. The political voice is on the record. What's missing is equal weight.
3. The PLO, as the representative of the Palestinian people, should participate on an equal footing with other parties in all conferences on the Middle East held under United Nations auspices. 4. The inadmissibility of the acquisition of territory by force and Israel's obligation to withdraw completely and quickly from all territory so occupied.
Through camp permanence, through becoming a stranger to home, through municipal life without sovereignty, through rights affirmed in language, while the material conditions stay structurally unresolved.
Israel has always feared destruction, but argues from strength, seeking security in occupation. But that means land without peace, a choice that is only made when you know that the massed armies of your enemy would collapse before your military might. The PLO is not wiped out, and their morale is high. They have demonstrated as never before that there can be no peace in the Middle East which ignores their claim to Palestine, and their will is eternal.
We are homeless. As long as we are homeless, we will go on fighting. They want to liquidate our cause. They want to liquidate our personality as a people. We are Palestinians. We lived in Palestine. We are born in Palestine. And why should I, who is born in Palestine, live as a refugee all over the world, and Menachem Begin, who's not a Palestinian and who was born somewhere in Europe, live in my own home? We will not be finished as a people. On the contrary, we were, we are, we shall always be.
By the time the treaty is signed, the contradiction is no longer hidden. You can hear it.
There is going to be a peace between them, and all signs are showing that. But it's against our Palestinian rights, because as long as we are not going to have our rights completely, it's nothing for us. Because first of all, we are not included in the treatment. Second thing, Egypt hasn't got the right to represent us even in the United States. We have our own representative, and he's Yasser Arafat.
Will this agreement, in your view, bring peace to this area?
Never. And I am saying it. If I'm going to steal your purse or your money, you won't forgive me neither today nor after 10 days. This land is ours, and we are not going to give it up so easy. As long as we are Palestinians and we own this land, then we are going to fight for it. Neither we'll wait for today or for tomorrow. Somehow, some way, someday, we are going to restore it by our own efforts.
Palestinians are saying openly that this is being done over their heads, and mainstream coverage is already showing mourning and rejection on the very day the peace image is going global.
This was a day of mourning on the occupied West Bank. Arab merchants locked their shops in nearly every West Bank town to protest what they said was President Sadat's betrayal of Palestinian demands for an independent homeland. A massive Israeli security force patrolled the West Bank and East Jerusalem.
And just as importantly, the Palestinian political position is not absent. It is there. It is legible. Bassem Shakar, the mayor of Nablus, is one clear civic example.
We heard just now a very moving statement by Mrs. Inaya Ashaka, the wife of the imprisoned mayor of Nablus, in which he set forth his views in favor of peace between Israel and the Palestinian people, based on Palestinian self-determination and the establishment of a Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza. She also said that Mr. Shaka is against violence of any kind. She very strongly denied the allegation that he was a kind of chief of PLO activities in the occupied territories, while making it clear that Mr. Shaka, like practically all the inhabitants in the West Bank, believe that the PLO is their legal representative.
It includes self-determination, statehood representation, and a refusal to be spoken for by others. So what's missing here is not Palestinian voice. What's missing is a structure willing to treat that voice as equally decisive. And that's the blueprint this record leaves behind. A peace strong enough to transform relations between states, not strong enough to secure Palestinian rights. A process detailed enough to finance implementation, security and bilateral certainty. Not clear enough to deliver sovereignty, return or representation on Palestinian terms.
Shortly after the bombs had hit 2 houses, we saw the smoke rising, and with our eyes we saw many civilian casualties. One young boy in the back of a car was severed from the bombs, and under the rubble of the houses was a woman. We were told that more of the family was, but we saw the woman caught and she'd been killed by the bombs.
The picture the outside world has in the West and in Europe and America is that the Camp David settlement is bringing peace to the Middle East. But we know from what we've seen that that's not the case at all. In fact, the violence and the bombing is getting worse, partly due to the Camp David settlement, enabling the Israelis to concentrate on the Palestinians and ignore the Egyptians. And we're appalled by what's happening here, and we think it's of vital importance that the West realises what's going on, that the people in the West realise and pressurise their own governments to recognise the rights of the Palestinians and help them in their just struggle for a homeland, because that's what they need, that's what they're entitled to, that's what every human being is entitled to.
This Israeli escalation of the attacks and the raids against the Palestinian people and the Lebanese peoples are considered in the framework of escalating the fight, of creating the scorched earth against the Palestinian resistance movement, and they are the expression of the Israeli refusal to recognize the Palestinian people, their self-determination right and their independent state.
And once the Palestinian question is moved into processed language, the violence doesn't disappear, it gets redistributed. That isn't hindsight. The warning signs were already there in the record. That is the record. Camp David did change the region. Egypt recovered Sinai. Israel gained recognition. The United States became the central broker. But for Palestinians, the core question stayed suspended. Return sovereignty, representation, land safety, named in language, deferred in practice. And that is why this matters beyond one treaty ceremony. Because peace is not just what leaders sign, it is what civilians are actually allowed to live. So if this helped you see the record a little more clearly, subscribe to Prottayon for the next chapter. And if I've missed a source, a correction, or a piece of archive that belongs in this case file, drop it below with a timestamp. That genuinely helps keep the work honest. As always, thank you for watching. Stay curious, keep questioning, and most of all, take care.